Slay the Spire 2 just released a couple days ago and has already achieved massive success, as it's being in the top 20 played games of all time on Steam. Developed by an indie company with 10 to 12 employees by the name of Metacrit Games, they have created something special for all of us to enjoy. And this is an achievement that we should not be underselling, man. Slay the Spire 2 right now is in the conversation with games like Elden Ring, Dota 2, Cyberpunk 2077, PUBG Battlegrounds, and many more when it comes to concurrent player count on Steam. Now, what's the outlier here though? Which thing it doesn't belong? That one little roguelike deck builder made by an indie company, but it actually does belong. The success of Slay the Spire 2 has many people wondering, how are AAA games not able to deliver a product that consumer feels are good enough to support? With games such as Marathon or even the late great Highguard. I miss you already. I miss you. I love you so much, Highguard. Both having a budget of upwards to over $200 million roughly, yet they're still not finding nowhere near the level of success as Slay the Spire. It's quite worrisome. And this is a story we've seen before, where an indie game comes out and blows AAA games out the water due to a unique and complete experience being sold at a cheaper price point. 2025, we saw another indie game being Silksong 2, released with an ungodly amount of hype and success, selling over 7 million copies by December 2025, with a development cost of only roughly $9 million. The game peaked at over 580,000 players on Steam alone and was a massive hit. Even recently with Mugenics' release, the game sold over 1 million copies in the first week, generating $25 million in sales on Steam, recouping all the development costs, being roughly around $1 million, and still has an active player base of 40,000 plus people, peaking at 115,000 users. So if these developers are much smaller teams and budgets can deliver a product that is fulfilling to the general public, why is it that big AAA companies are really struggling to do the same thing? And I think the answer is pretty simple. I do. At first glance, I'll be honest, I wasn't really impressed with what I saw when it came to Slay the Spire 2's gameplay. It seemed pretty basic, and while there's a gacha game out right now that's very similar called Chaos Zero Nightmare, which will obviously receive more updates since it's a live service game, and Slay the Spire 2 is kind of just not, right? See, it has single player or co-op, but that's it. What you get is what you get when you make your purchase. I truly believe in some capacity we are kind of conditioned by these developers thinking that a game needs to be live service for us to enjoy it. It needs to be live service to make money, right? You know, if a game is not having frequent updates every couple months or every couple weeks where you have to pay more money to experience a new character or a new storyline, maybe we won't find it as fun, or the developers won't make enough money because the initial release of the game wasn't enough to recoup cost, and they want to provide you as much fun content as possible to keep a community growing. But honestly, sometimes it's just bullshit, right? A perfect example of this would be recently EA laying off their staff across all Battlefield studios after Battlefield 6 was one of the most highest selling games of 2025 in the United States. A live service game that made millions of dollars for developers, yet somehow EA is firing people and the player count is on a constant decline day in and day out. In theory, this game should be soaring with positive feedback and a healthy community, but the opposite has happened. Rather than making a quality game where players can have fun and not feel like they're being milked for every dollar they have, or the anxiety the game is just gonna die due to the mismanagement on the developer's end, it seems like a lot of AAA studios want to try and make as many live service games as possible until they hit the gold mine by really capturing you with microtransactions and so on and so forth. But Slay the Spire 2 is a completely different story, baby. It really is. Metacrit sold us a full game for the price of $25. That's it. End of discussion. But seriously, this is a full experience without the trust issues of having to feel, hey, am I going to miss out on content if I don't buy a DLC in a couple months? Will I have FOMO if I don't purchase a skin for X character? I mean, Metacrit themselves even stated we're microtransaction haters. A lot of players threaten to buy all and any cosmetics we may ever release. They really want players to experience all of the same content, as a discussion of game content and balance is sort of our lifeblood. So you can feel confident knowing the $25 you spent on Slay the Spire 2 will be the only cash you'll need to drop on a game as it chugs through the early access and beyond, unless you eventually buy one of its unconfirmed but inevitable console ports. Bam, off rip, dog. A level of transparency right there. That level of transparency is not something you're used to when it comes to game developers. It's very rare in this day and age, unless it's Warframe. Shout out to Warframe, love you guys. I mean, look, realistically, I would easily spend $100 on a couple skins just to drip my homies out and make them look like 50 Cent back in the 2000s. Like, I'm just keeping it stacked. And clearly, a lot of people feel that same way as well, but Metacritic Comfort is taking the stance to say, we are not including these microtransactions into the game. We will not be doing this. We want you to experience the game for what it is, have fun, and enjoy it single player or co-op. And I think that's very respectable, because that's not something you see very often in the current day and age of gaming. And that really does bring a level of comfort, at least in my eyes, knowing I can purchase Slay the Spire 2 and play it as I want to. No weekly deadlines that'll make me miss out on loot because I have to worry about a weekly reset, not a live service game. No secret dark monetization tactic, simply just a fun game that'll be available to me when I have the time to play it after I come home from work crying in the tub with a toast. You might think this is a low bar to have, but realistically speaking, with the state of gaming, I think it's the appropriate metric. Looking at a case study such as Highguard, this game was announced at the Game Awards being advertised as a new indie project. Going into the hero shooter genre, and we pretty much got zero information before the game launched. Simply one single player trailer, and the devs were silent ever since. On launch day, people logged in, tried to play the game, but eventually the players just fell off. Despite what the developers want you to think, the reason why Highguard fell off was 100% Highguard's fault. And that's due to the dishonest nature of the announcement and the game being targeted only for sweats and pros. Making a specific point to say an indie game is trying to change the FPS genre when it secretly was backed by Tencent with, again, a budget of roughly 200 million was definitely a choice I would have not gone with. Having a big backing with a massive company like Tencent in itself, it's not inherently evil at all. I mean, listen, bro, give me the money, please. But this completely changes the narrative that someone like Geoff Keighley and the developers were originally trying to sell you prior to the game's release. Why lie, or why not mention this before the release and really hone in on the indie developer stuff? It felt like, in some ways, I don't want to be that guy. Maybe a little bit of an agenda push right there, right? Not saying it's woke and gay. I'm not like everyone else, all right? I'm woke and gay, though. How can someone in good faith listen to what these devs tell you or trust the direction of the game when they simply can't even provide an honest narrative prior to release? The gameplay itself wasn't even inherently trash. In some point, it was actually fun, but trying to break into a already established genre such as a hero shooter where all the competition, way more beginner and casual friendly, and has a pro scene as well with games such as Valorant, Marvel Rivals, Overwatch, hell, even Deadlock. And then there's Highguard, a 3v3 massive open world map that is super sweaty and everyone hated because they didn't know how to shoot. It just wasn't going to work, and by the time they added a 5v5 mode, it was already too late. $200 million for a game to shut down roughly 45 days after its initial release, and again, another AAA game bites the dust. Piggybacking off of the failure of Highguard, right? They were not able to develop themselves and find a niche in the hero shooter genre because it was so saturated. Slay the Spire is going into a genre where technically they kind of defined it with Slay the Spire 1, right? Being one of the first roguelike deck builder games. There was a level of anticipation for this game, but their marketing was pretty much almost non-existent to my understanding. They dropped like 2 videos on YouTube and maybe a couple Twitter posts, but that was it. They let the gameplay speak for itself, and that's amazing because of the simplicity with the marketing ties into the simplicity of the game in itself, right? You log into this game and it's pretty hard to get confused. The UI is clean, tutorial is fantastic. It completely shows you that each character has a certain amount of action points per turn, and every card uses a certain level of action points unless it says 0 on it. You have different items you can use during combat, and each unit plays completely different. Now, again, looks very simple, but there's a level of depth and strategy with each character that really makes it fun, and it's self-explanatory. I don't need to go to a third-party website to figure out how a character works. I don't need to figure out a build. I can just play around with it and see how I like it. For example, I was using Silent, and for some reason I decided, you know what, let me just drain all my HP and use the shield mechanic in the game and see how my runs would go. So as opposed to normally just shielding when I would have to before I would get attacked, now I need to keep my shield up at all times, but this would then make me play completely different, allowing me to figure out how can I sustain my health with only being 1 HP and my shield keeping high, but also finding a way to kill the enemies. Now granted, I failed, but it was fun to try, and I'm gonna do it again. It's like my little autistic niche where I'm like, hey, I want to go back and do this and see how far I can make it. But that's the beauty of it. It's a simple game that doesn't need anything more than a couple functioning brain cells to read the cards in front of you and play with it. And it does have that co-op feature, so if you get bored of running single player runs, bro, just go play with friends up to 4 people, and it's a fantastic time. Marathon is the other massive release that is being used to measure the success of Slay the Spire. And the truth is, Marathon itself is also not a bad game. It really isn't. It actually has amazing gunplay. And while it does have some issues, I do think there is a bit of an over-exaggeration on the hate train. With that being said though, I understand why people feel worrisome trying to get into bed with Bungie. Me personally, I don't know if I'm ever doing that again. Y'all ruined my life. I hate you.
I hate you, nigga. Let's die.
I don't hate you. It was a joke. It was a prank. It was a prank. Don't sue me. Actually, I love Marathon. Quote of the day, Marathon's great. Sponsor me. Thank you. Bungie has found a way to not only ruin their reputation over the past years, but actively seem to be ruining their IPs, such as Destiny. The Destiny franchise as a whole is honestly just up in the air as a 50-50 at this point. Every year, a DLC will release, and it might be really great, or we can have the next 1 to 2 years of mediocre DLCs. Weapons that we have grinded for have been completely taken away for us, just for us to rebuy a DLC to have to regrind those same weapons and gear again for the 500th time. And of course, everyone knows about the content being completely removed from the game. I haven't touched the first raid in Destiny 2 ever since they released it, and I actually liked it. But I guess I can go fuck myself, right? With the new DLC release being delayed, player count being down for Destiny 2, people are just tired of the constant cycle that's going on with Bungie and don't have faith Bungie can deliver another satisfying project. Bungie requesting media outlets to wait until late March to review Marathon when it released early March is again another show of them just being completely out of touch and not knowing what they're doing.
Please don't review my game. Wait till all the content comes out, then you can accurately review it. Until then, I need you to play 50 hours.
What the fuck? Why would you drop the game if the content that you feel is going to thoroughly change my interest and make my review either better or worse, but most likely better? Why would you drop it like 4 weeks after? Like Bungie just wants to fucking drip feed you shit every single couple months or however long, because they think that you'll sit there for it. I'm not sitting there for that shit anymore. I don't fucking care. It's not happening. I'm reviewing your game. Now, while the player count on Marathon is not necessarily the worst thing I've ever seen, it's also really not the best, and I could probably see PlayStation seeing it as a little bit of a disappointment. The game peaked around 88,000 users on Steam and has been pretty much underneath that number ever since. There seems to be a pattern of dips and increases again during certain times of day, but with this game being the next big Bungie project where they're putting all their time and money into it, Sony's backing, tons of marketing, and a really big plan. Yeah, I don't know if this is what they expected. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a little rough. We also have people like Paul Tassi saying, allegedly, that most of Marathon's player base is on PC as opposed to console. So if that's the case, then Marathon seems to not be performing at a level that it really should be with how much money was spent on marketing, development, and being backed by Sony. I can't say for certain I'll sit down and dive into this game more than the couple hours I've played, because I have no idea how long it could possibly last. I mean, you know, Shroud said the game's backed by Sony, so, you know, it might last forever, but they shut down Concord's fucking dead ass very soon. I think they'll give a little bit more grace to Bungie because Bungie made Halo and Destiny 2 before they killed it, but again, we have no guarantee here, right? Again, Slay the Spire 2. This is an issue where if I was a betting man, I think there's a 0.01% chance this game will ever shut down. There's no reason for it to shut down. They've made their money already. Now, the one thing I will say is a lot of people feel that a game like Slay the Spire 2, Hollow Knight Silksong, games like that where they're more single player indie games that are not live service, don't have a level of longevity to them as if you were to play maybe a game like a Marathon if it doesn't shut down. You could have said Highguard, but it shut down, right? Destiny 2, things like that. And in certain situations, you're 100% right. I would rather get 20, 30, 40, 50 hours out of a single player game, truly enjoy the experience that I had, and then quietly move on when I get bored, as opposed to spending hundreds of dollars or even thousands of dollars if you're like playing like a gacha game or something, and have this level of sunk cost fallacy where I have to go back, I have to keep playing because I need to do my weeklies, I need to do my dailies, I need to experience this new expansion that's going to cost me money that realistically is a lot of the times more or less the same bullshit, you know? I mean, we're seeing it even today. Look at a game like Resident Evil Requiem. Right now, the runtime is roughly around 12-ish hours. If you decide to play the game again on a harder difficulty, let's say you get close to around 30, 40 hours if you aim like Asmongold.
Shit! What?
Because that motherfucker sucks. After that, you move on, right? But are people going to regret playing Resident Evil Requiem or spending $70 on Resident Evil Requiem? No, it's already considered one of the greatest games ever created, and rightfully so. And it's just a single player story mode. Silksong is not live service, and even if you look at the active numbers to today, the numbers on Steam have definitely fallen off compared to what it was during the release, but that doesn't invalidate the amazing experience that you had for $30, which would be the same thing with Slay the Spire 2. To me, Ulrich experiences that come with an eventual close date or an eventual expiration date, in my opinion, a lot of the times will be more valuable than a continuous half-assed experience with a video game. That's how I'm looking at it. Slay the Spire 2 is putting y'all motherfuckers to shame. Get your shit together. I'm out this bitch.